Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Agajanian Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests today are composer Gernot Wolfgang and artist Alec Egan. Grammy-nominated composer, lecturer, musician, Gernot Wolfgang was born and raised in Austria. He graduated from the University of Music in Graz and the Berklee College of Music in Boston. His more than 40 commissions from a variety of chamber and symphony orchestras have been performed all over the world, from Carnegie Hall in New York City, the National Gallery in D.C., Concerthaus in Vienna, and that festival in Mexico, Guanajuato. That was fabulous. So welcome, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Joan.
So what kind of music were you nominated for your Grammy?
I was nominated for a CD of my chamber music that I produced together with my wife, Judy Farmer. And that was music that was written exclusively in the 2000s, a variety of instrumentations, string quartets, string quintets, a lot of music with bassoon.
So there was a lot on the album?
Yeah, there was a lot of different instrument combinations, and at least half of the album is with bassoon, which is what the instrument of my wife, Judy Farmer, is.
How do you compose on the bassoon? Do you play it?
I don't play it, but I get to hear it every day.
Because she plays it, right?
Yeah.
Do you write it and then she plays it for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it started out where she was saying, just write what you want and I'll figure it out. And in the meantime, I have learned to write very idiomatically for it.
So you grew up in Austria, and was there music in your family?
Yeah, from on my mom's side, she was a cellist and an organist.
Oh, she was.
Yeah, I caught the bug when I was around 16.
Late, kind of late, right?
Yeah, I heard Oscar Peterson on the radio, and that kind of did it for me.
That's what's so interesting, because you're associated with, I keep thinking like old world, Austria, like classical music, but you're like a real jazz person.
Yeah, it's kind of backwards, isn't it?
It was different for me to understand that. So what instrument do you play?
I used to play guitar. That was my main instrument, and I got really serious about the guitar when I was about 19. Fascinated by jazz in general.
But how different was that from what you were hearing? What were you listening to?
Well, I was listening to progressive rock at the time, and to classic rock and roll like the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And then Oscar Peterson hit me like lightning, really. It opened up a whole new world, and I was dabbling a little bit on the guitar, so that's why I went to become a guitar player. And then I got interested in Wes Montgomery and Jim Hall, who were my great role models at the time.
You went to music school?
Yeah.
And then how'd you get to Berklee? Because that's such a great school.
It was a great school. I graduated in Graz and got a Fulbright scholarship. Berklee was one of the schools that offered me to go. And
so Fulbright gave those then?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so great. So you chose that?
I chose that because it seemed the most versatile of options.
The thing is, when we talked about your mother being a musician, and I said, is there music in the family? But your wife is also a musician.
Yeah.
And so the two of you are performing. You still you perform,
I
right?
don't perform anymore, no.
Oh, you don't perform at all?
No, I write and I orchestrate and arrange.
So how do you keep that schedule, the two of you? Do you have to go, if they're playing something of yours, do you have to be there?
I'd love to be there, if it's possible. Yeah, sure.
And so where have you gone for pieces that you've composed?
I've gone to New York, I've gone to DC, I've gone to Boston, I've gone to Austria, of course.
All different pieces?
All different pieces, yeah.
You have composed major pieces for the bassoon, right? Basically?
Yeah.
And is that because she's in the house?
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
Can you play it?
Not even a little bit.
How do you write for an instrument when you can't play it?
Well, that's a great question. And the answer is I go to a lot of concerts and I listen to what's going on very intently and try to remember what kind of things sound good on a particular instrument. And then I try to recreate that. And if I can't figure it out in the concert hall, then I'll go back and look at the score and see what it is that makes the instrument sound good at this particular moment.
And what usually is that? The notes or the way they're put together? What is it?
I think it's usually the sweet spot in the register of the instrument, the sort of the part from low to high where the instrument sounds particularly versatile and in control of dynamics.
And then you write in that area? Or?
I try to hang out in that area as much as I can, but of course you have to go up or down. It depends on where a melody wants to go.
But that's also just that. But what about the other instruments that are coming in too, right?
Yeah, right. So it applies to all the instruments, really.
And then how do you get them all together?
Well,
is it in your head? I can't ever figure out how a composer hears the music and writes it on paper.
It's a combination of being in your head and a combination of just, noodling around on the piano and just, in my case, I improvise a lot because that's my background.
Oh, because that's more jazz, right?
Yeah. But what comes out sounds more classical, so...
That's what I was thinking. When you do lectures, how do you tell the people in the audience what's going on?
Well, I don't think there's not much explanation needed, really. A dear colleague of mine once told me that he was playing a particular piece, and he said, this piece is like 2/3 classical, 1/3 jazz. And that's just ideal because it's within my comfort zone. If it's 2/3 to 1/3, if it's half and half, then I already don't feel so secure anymore. So
is that right? So there's that whole feeling like that.
Yeah, I think.
But you collaborated with jazz musicians, right?
Yes, also, yeah, and that was purely jazz.
It was like in this country or in Europe or
in
what?
this country a little bit, not mainly in Europe.
And who are those people?
Well, there are recordings of my pieces that have people like Peter Erskine and Bob Berg, Richie Byrock, John Patitucci. So very, very, renowned jazz musicians, contemporary.
But you don't play guitar with them?
I don't play guitar
you
with them.
Just,
I wrote
all you
the
do
music.
is write the music,
yeah,
right?
I wrote
Do you
the pieces.
conduct?
No, actually not. I know how to conduct, but I don't conduct well enough to do it.
It's so interesting that you like to stay in this one little area, and not that it's different, but you've done like 40, 50, like an abundance of composing. And I would think that if you compose something, you'd want to conduct it.
Yeah, but I have to say most of the pieces that I wrote are chamber music pieces, which don't need a conductor, really.
Oh, well, tell us about that. Tell us the difference. You write for chamber and for orchestra.
Yeah. So in chamber, the musicians take over. So there's usually, if it's a string quartet, then the first violin usually gives the entrances.
And how many would it be?
It would be 4.
It would be 4.
Yeah.
Oh, string quartet. Okay.
Yeah.
4. And the first violinist?
Is the leader, and everybody looks to him or her. Or, whoever has an important entrance will give the entrance. Could be the cellist or the violist, and they work it out within themselves. So there's no conductor needed.
I see.
I've had chamber music conducted where the instrumentation was 7 people, that's sort of borderline. They can still do it without a conductor, but sometimes they choose to use a conductor.
Oh, well, they could use a conductor then.
Yeah.
And then with the orchestra, then what happens?
Most of the time, there is a conductor. There are a few chamber orchestras, like...
So, would a conductor come to you and say, how did you write this, or how should I interpret it?
I think the conductors, they look at the score and they learn their own picture of the piece.
And so
their
whatever
own interpretations. And then at the rehearsals, we have a dialogue about
you do go. You'll go.
I'll go if it's in town. Yeah, I'll go and.
So you've composed a lot for the Pittance Opera.
Well, I have. It's going to be my third piece with them.
They're doing a world premiere. Tell us
Yes.
what that is.
That's a piece called Decisions for oboe and piano with Jennifer Cullinan oboe and Gloria Chang piano.
And Gloria Chang is also a Grammy Award winner.
She is a Grammy Award winner, yes, and also an Emmy Award winner.
Oh, she's an Emmy Award winner, too. So they'll be performing. Where will they be performing?
They'll be performing at the Pasadena Conservatory, Barrett Hall, on April 5.
Oh, and where? The conservatory.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I've never been there.
It's the hall is beautiful acoustically, and has a very good piano in there, so it's a really good place to go to a chamber music concert.
And the artistic director is?
It's Lisa Sutton.
And she's obviously familiar with your work because you've worked there a lot.
Yeah, she knows my music, and the idea of the series of Pittance chamber music is to give the members of the LA Opera Orchestra a chance to play chamber music. So most of the musicians are members of the LA Opera Orchestra.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
So how big is the chamber orchestra?
A chamber orchestra is typically about 35 musicians,
And
like
then
the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra, for
And then the
instance.
next step?
Next step would be a full symphony orchestra, 80, 100, depends on
And what
the
about an
budget.
opera? What about an opera orchestra?
Opera orchestra is probably more like symphony orchestra size.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're both. You're taking graduate classes at USC. Was it at the Thornton School?
Yes.
And for scoring film.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends there, and they're still my friends, and I work with them and work for them still, although it's been
What
a long
is that?
time ago.
How different is that from composing, or is it the same?
No, it's not the same because my role in the film world is as an orchestrator. So
What is that?
I create a score based on sketches that the composers sent me. And the sketches are in electronic form. They are recordings of a particular piece of music with synthesized sounds or samples, plus a so-called MIDI file where all the information is about every instrument and the tempos and everything.
And so then what do you do with it?
I create a score on a notation program.
And is it for a film?
Yeah, it's for film,
And then do you
television,
watch? What do you
video
do?
game.
Do you watch the film and then? Or do you
sometimes.
How does it work? First or second?
As an
way?
orchestrator, sometimes I get to watch the film, sometimes I don't. But because the music is already very defined at that point, and it has been approved by the director, so sometimes it's really not necessary to look at
It just
picture.
goes in the way the director wants it to go?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. So you're so busy. How do you find time to teach?
Actually, at present, I don't teach.
You're not teaching?
I do guest lecturing. Sometimes I get invited by a university to talk about both the orchestrating and my concert music.
Well, you have opened a whole new world for me today. Thank you very much, Gerhard, for being with us.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
And thank you for watching this part of our show. And we'll see you in a few minutes with artist Alec Egan. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm here with Alec Egan, who has a BFA in Creative Writing and Poetry from Kenyon College. He has an MFA from Otis College of Art and Design. He's a native Californian, and his work has been included in exhibitions from New York to California. And he's represented by my good friend, Gernot Wolfgang, on La Cienega at her gallery. So, what happened? You were studying poetry and creative writing, and now you're an artist. Tell me what happened.
What happened? That's a good question. I think it was when I think back to it, it was kind of a natural transition, but where I got stifled in poetry was the kind of the economy you had to use with language.
I don't know how a poet does it.
I know.
But how could you study it? I mean, that was a master. That was a degree.
Yeah, that was a degree. And also the kind of also studying it and being told what to do all the time and how to write like that. I couldn't understand. I kind of got.
But writing is different. What were you writing?
I mean, I was mainly only writing poetry, but
you were.
Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. But then but I was also a rugby player. So.
But creative writing isn't that different from poetry?
Well, poetry was kind of a subset underneath the creative writing umbrella.
Were you going to go into like show business writing?
No. The idea was to live and die as a poet,
Oh, was your hair longer?
My hair was longer. My hair was very long.
I know your beard was longer.
The beard was long too.
So this whole path changed.
The whole path changed. The physicality of painting kind of helped me through a writer's block once. And then I just never left it. I just never left the studio. I broke into the art studio at college one night, and I kind of never left.
You mean at Kenyon?
At Kenyon.
Really?
Yeah.
Who was teaching there? Were there art? Was it an art department?
my would go in there late at night and get drunk and paint these paintings, and then leave, and we just leave the paintings
no
there.
One would know.
No one would know who did it.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I swear. And one morning, a professor caught me. Her name was Karen Snoffer. She was the head of the art program, and she was so supportive and wonderful, and she kind of like. She was like, "You got to be here."
Really? Because she loved your work?
She was just into it. So I got lucky, and she was kind of like a great first mentor,
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you went to Otis.
And then I went to Otis.
And you had a great group of painters and teachers.
I did. Yeah, that program was run by Roy Dowell, who's a great, great
Roy
artist.
Dowell, great, yeah. So you come from a showbiz family.
I do.
But was that an influence on your art or on your writing, or on what part of this was it?
Well, I come from my mom's an actress and my dad's a director, but my grandma was a painter.
Oh, so it does go back to the family.
It goes back.
Good.
And my aunt is a painter, and my cousin is a painter.
Really?
Yeah. And
so this was meant to be. You
I
just
think
didn't
so.
know it until you were.
Yeah, I think so.
Until you were older. Did you paint with them when you were a kid?
My grandma would kind of like, instead of hanging out with people or going to play outside, she'd trap us in her studio. And
really? So she really had a studio and she was really painting with you. So when you were at Otis, were the painters hanging together? Or not?
Well, kind of. I went at a very interesting time. I mean, I don't know if I went at an interesting time, but painting was kind of in a transitory place where it wasn't the coolest thing to be doing in grad school. So
what was it? Was it minimal, very minimal?
It was kind of like a lot of video stuff.
Oh, video, right.
Return to sculptural stuff and
art. Was it space?
Yeah, like post-studio stuff. A bunch of interesting stuff. But that being said, there were a couple painters in there who I love. They're my favorite painters still. Shout out Srijan Chowdhury. He just had a show at Foxy Productions in New York. He's a great painter.
Who is it?
Srijan Chowdhury.
Oh, I don't know him. Was he a colleague of yours?
He's a colleague, still is. Yeah, great guy.
So you guys were painting together. Were you hanging out together?
All
the
time.
Painters
together? The painters were together, but it was such a small program. We were all kind of together.
Oh, that's what I wondered. What took you to Venice?
I kind of grew up in Santa Monica, so.
Oh, you did.
Venice was the next transition.
Oh.
But.
So do you see the artists in Venice? I mean, that was a pretty hefty place in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
I know it was.
They're kind of moving out, or they're kind of dying.
I know. I know. It's crazy.
Sad to say.
It is, but Yeah, my wife, Harper Dill's father is Guy Dill.
Is your father? Is your is your wife Harper Dill?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that interesting?
It is.
Because I knew little Harper when she was a little
I
girl.
knew that, and that's why Harper was like, I think she knows who you are. But
I did not know that.
You didn't?
No, because I know Guy and Laddie.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh, well, that's really nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. You too.
This is like an old homecoming here.
I know. It felt like that. That's why I was like, do I know you?
So that's why you went there. So you know the group, and you know the group of artists I'm talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And if
So-
I didn't know about them, we definitely knew about them in grad school. And
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very kind of famous era of painting, you know, and now all art.
So we
coming
talk
out.
about your mother being in show business. Your wife is too.
That's right.
So you're surrounded.
I'm surrounded by it, and I think it's, you know, in a way, it's seeped into the art, of course. But yeah, it's a good thing to be in reaction to for sure.
So one of the things that I hear about your work is that you explore nostalgia. And in what way?
Well, you know, I think artists are always trying to mine a new territory and whatever. But for me, that was like, you know, not being precious, being a little bit more accessible as an artist. I find people like David Hockney, who we were talking about, fascinating, but because they're like touching into almost like a Norman Rockwell quality, you know?
That's interesting because it's simple in
Yeah.
a way. It's not the right word to say.
Well, anybody can get it, you know? Anybody
Yeah.
can
yeah, it's
be a
easy,
part of it, yeah.
Right. So is that how you would describe your work?
Yeah, so the work is like all the wallpaper patterns and the and drawing in new kind of imagery and
So you do a lot of pattern
a
painting?
lot of pattern paintings, but all in domestic spaces. But
So like a domestic space, a living room.
a living room, a bedroom, a
kitchen.
bathroom, yeah, a kitchen. So there's to recall different generations, but also place you in the now. So that's the nostalgia I'm talking about. I want them to be that kind of really era-less space where people can, you know, people know.
But I've seen some of those paintings, and it's pretty bizarre. Like you have a living room, but then you have this huge bear.
Right.
But the bear is real. It's not like a stuffed bear, is it?
It's a
not-
taxidermy bear. It's on a
it is a
pedestal.
taxidermy
yeah.
bear.
Uh-huh. But I'm glad that it looks real to you.
It looks real.
Yeah.
No, but it looked like this bear was invading the living room.
Gotcha. Well, that's a good take on it because I feel like a huge taxidermy bear in a small living room would be a bear invading the room. But yeah, I mean, when you paint something, you know, it takes on a little bit more for whatever reason. If it's done in a certain way, it takes on a little bit more reverence than even it being real. So
tell me what kind of materials you use.
I mean, I'm an oil painter
And canvas, obviously.
and
right?
canvas, and then flash paint, which is a very matte acrylic paint.
And then when in your palette, what colors?
Am I into? There are.
I don't know. I just wonder what your palette is, if you have a palette. Or
You know,
does it change?
It changes. It definitely varies. But if I'm painting a room, so the kind of the way that I construct things is there's a master painting in every exhibition, which is like the legend, the key to the paintings, and then details that come out of that bigger painting. So
But the details come out in the painting. They don't come out in other little paintings.
they do come out in other little
Oh, they
paintings.
do.
Yeah.
So if you're painting, say, for a knot, a show, do you have one theme, and do you just paint for that show?
Exactly. Yeah.
You just paint for that one show.
So like right now I'm working on a show for a knot for May 18th, and I'm painting a kind of a dressing room, changing room, which is a big painting, and a bathroom, which is a big painting, and every other painting in the show is a
So they're pieces from
Yeah,
this. So it would.
correct.
Oh, so it's like deconstructing.
deconstructing, like a set or scene. So that
Set.
Yeah.
Back to
that's
the
right.
theater.
That's right.
But how big is the original piece?
So the original pieces are always bigger than the other pieces in the show. So
Yeah.
for this show, they're 7 feet by 6 feet.
Oh, they're
Big.
pretty big.
Yeah.
And then the other pieces that come out of it?
They vary from 30 by 40 inches up to 5 by 4 feet.
So where does this inspiration come from?
Well, it all goes back to kind of the writing thing, you know.
That's what I'm wondering,
I'm a
is
very
it
like
writing?
narrative-minded fellow.
Oh, so all this is telling
building
your
a story.
story.
Yeah. So
I
eventually,
see.
I never paint figures. It's only these domestic spaces.
Oh, you know. Oh, I see.
So I'm building a house in my mind, and then eventually one day we'll hope to exhibit every room of the house with every detail. And
That's a museum show.
we're talking.
And you know where that is?
Huh?
Dubuque.
That was just one room, but that was a great museum. That was a great.
But why was it Dubuque?
Dubuque was. I love Dubuque. Dubuque is because my grandma was from Dubuque.
Okay, that's right. Okay.
And some family members. But number two is when
Your mother was raised there?
My mother was raised there, but when I was really broke and trying to figure it out and being a painter, there was so much space in the Midwest, especially in Iowa, that I would go there for long stretches and paint in barns and do whatever I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you actually painted there?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. The inception of this idea of building a house started in Dubuque.
Oh, interesting.
And when a place like when you kind of get your bearing on your work in a place like that, it will always have a big place in your heart.
And you had a show there.
I had a show there. I came back to do the show there after I
And
felt
what
like
did you paint there?
I showed the bear. I showed the.
Oh, you did the bear?
Yeah.
Oh.
So a living room.
Oh, that's really good. Well, we talked about Harper Dill's mother and father, Mary Ann and Guy. We didn't talk about your mother and father, their names.
My mother is named Kate Mulgrew, wonderful actress and writer. And my dad is Robert Egan, big
he's a
theater director, yeah.
So, did you ever do theater?
I tried out for Snoopy in a play when I was in 6th grade and didn't make the cut.
That was it?
That was it.
So we gave up poetry, we gave up theater.
We did.
But we've got great paintings going, and I love the way that you take pieces out of them.
Thank you.
That's really terrific.
Well,
and it builds it actually builds an installation, doesn't it? Do you put anything else in the gallery?
No. I mean, there might be some sculptures in the show, but what it does, it is kind of an installation, but it's also enhances that moment of discovery. When viewers look at paintings, they're all, for me, I'm obsessed with the moment of discovery when I figure something out about a painting,
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you see it somewhere
Exactly, and then you start to build the narrative in your head about how it came,
So, what's your dream for your art? I know what it is.
What is it?
I know what it is. It's to build a whole house of your paintings.
That's true. That's one dream. But really, my dream for my art is to push myself and just, I'm fascinated by looking, and I want to be the strongest painter I can be,
I think the one good thing that's interesting that you talked about earlier is like, what artists do you like? What artists do you like? And you mentioned like Hockney.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned like the artists who were in Venice at the time. I mean, we talk about Larry Bell and Ed Moses and Bankston and Tony Berland
Right.
and that whole group who actually worked together and created a place.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, they created a little movement over there.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad you're there.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you're watching us today. This has been wonderful. No, thanks, Alec, very much.
Of course.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
being
much.
here.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing at JAQUINN1 at AOL.com.